James Gunn and Peter Safran are the co-CEOs of DC Studios now, and we're finally seeing the first big dominoes to fall. Obviously, a few things have been canceled before they took over. They have a big 10-year plan that they're trying to enact that's going to encompass movies, streaming, television, video games, all that stuff. And there are a few big productions that we assumed were going to go off under the new DC Studios. One of them would be Wonder Woman 3, the sequel to the very popular Wonder Woman film, and the very less popular Wonder Woman 1984. It appears that is not going to happen. And as part of the bigger picture of this cancellation, it appears that the Snyderverse is likely no more. They're pretty much scrapping all of that. And it sounds like a lot of the key hirings Zack Snyder made while he was in charge of the DCEU are being scrapped as well. And they might be having a clean slate. This all comes from an article from The Hollywood Reporter. Multiple sources tell THR Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3 is not moving forward and is considered dead in its current incarnation. Sources say Jenkins recently submitted her treatment, co-written by Jeff Johns, and that Gunn and Safran, as well as Warner Brothers Pictures co-chairs and co-CEOs Michael DeLuca and Pamela Adby, broke the news to the filmmaker, telling her the project as it stood did not fit in with the new, but still unfolding plans. Jenkins directed and co-wrote the previous two movies starring Gal Gadot, released in 2017 and 2020. No decision has been made about the next steps. I will give James Gunn and Peter Safran this. At least they're decisive. There are a few projects that you assumed with the new DCU moving forward, Aquaman and Wonder Woman being the two, because those were the two really successful films, that those films would go forward and they would really be part of the foundation of what this new DCU is going to be moving forward. I assumed, and I think a lot of people assumed, they were going to take the best pieces available to them in the old DCEU, kind of cherry pick, work around them, and see if they can make a shared, cohesive superhero universe. That appears not to be the case. I honestly think that possibly when we see this Flash movie, that is going to be a firm reboot on everything, and we're likely going to be getting new portrayals essentially of all the heroes within the DC universe. No more Henry Cavill as Superman, no more Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Black Adam, no more Ben Affleck as Batman, no more Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and no Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Very bold choices, but it sounds like things are in motion and they're wiping the slate clean, especially when it comes to the Snyderverse. The rest of the DC slate remains in flux, or at least is being kept deep in a pocket of Gunn's own utility belt, but there are several rumors and possible scenarios to consider ahead of next week's meetings, which builds on the shuttering of Jenkins' Wonder Woman #3, is the closing curtain of the Snyderverse, and the heroes cast by filmmaker Zack Snyder for his Justice League. This one sees the shutting down of Man of Steel 2, with the returning Henry Cavill, and having no more Aquaman fronted by Jason Momoa. Of all the things wrong with the Snyderverse, his incarnation of the DCEU in movies, I think one of the things he absolutely did right was casting a lot of these heroes. I personally think that Henry Cavill makes a pretty darn good Superman. I think Ben Affleck was a very compelling Batman. I think Gal Gadot is a wonderful Wonder Woman, and I think Jason Momoa was pretty darn good as Aquaman. Definitely a different take on the character, but certainly it resonated with people, and the movie was very successful. We'll see if the sequel is going to be as successful. I know a lot of people that are DC fans, when they think about dream casting Jason Momoa into the future DCU, do not want to see him continue on as Aquaman. They want to see him be Lobo, which certainly fits more of his personality and his look. He looks like Lobo. He's got the build for it. He's got the hair. He's got the face. He's got everything that you need to be Lobo. This could be moving forward with that. Certainly James Gunn has been teasing that. But losing Henry Cavill as Superman would be a huge loss. Losing Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman would be a huge loss. I don't even know if Ben Affleck was going to come back full time to be the new Batman. But there are far too many Batman within the DCU as it is right now. We've got Michael Keaton. We got the dude from Twilight. We got Ben Affleck. They probably need to scale all that stuff down and come up with one person to portray Batman. If we have to lose some of these really good castings like a Henry Cavill, like a Gal Gadot, in order to undo Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, I'm willing to take it. That's probably some of the worst casting I've ever seen in a movie, probably in the history of films. Plus, Zack Snyder kind of cherry-picked and used some very important elements of movies that would be very successful as standalone films when he made his Batman versus Superman. First of all, he used Batman versus Superman, which should be its own movie. He incorporated elements from The Dark Knight Returns, one of the 2 or 3 greatest comic book stories of all time, so he wasted that. And he also used elements of The Death of Superman. another one of the 5 or 6 best-selling comic books of all time, and he packaged them in all into one movie and just wasted so much material as far as what you could do with DC films and make a ton of money moving forward. I think it's probably pretty smart to unravel this. Warner Brothers have been trying to get out from under the shadow of Zack Snyder when it comes to their DC movies for a long time, and James Gunn is finally going to do it. He's going to take the decisive step. He says, you know what? We're not taking anything from the Snyderverse, whether it was good or not. We're going to have a clean break, and we're just going to move forward. We're not going to see Ezra Miller as the Flash anymore after this Flash movie. Now, there was a lot of information in that article. I only covered a little bit here for this video, but James Gunn did have a rebut to what THR had to say. Peter, I chose to helm DC Studios knowing we were coming into a fractious environment, both in the stories being told and in the audience itself, and there would be an unavoidable transition period as we moved into telling a cohesive story across film, TV, animation, and gaming. But in the end, the drawbacks of that transition period were dwarfed by the creative possibilities and the opportunity to build upon what has worked in DC so far and help rectify what is not. We know we are not going to make every single person happy every step of the way, but we can promise everything we do is done in the service of the story and in the service of the DC characters we know you cherish and we have cherished our whole lives. Also in that quote to THR, James Gunn says some of what you said was true, some of what you said was half true, and some of what you said was not true whatsoever. So there are some things in here that are absolutely true, and it appears Wonder Woman being canceled is one of them. That is decisive action. That is a clean slate for the DCU moving forward. No more Snyderverse. No more worrying about will they or won't they come back and portray these characters when it comes to Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, and other actors that people were excited to see come back. It's time to do a clean slate, get Jason Momoa in as Lobo, and let's do some fresh original stories. Let's go and adapt the material the best way possible instead of cramming everything together and have a nice, galvanized 10-year plan moving forward, something Zack Snyder never really had, something Joss Whedon never had the opportunity to do, and something Walter Hamada never got to do either. Hopefully, fingers crossed, David Zaslav and the people behind Warner Brothers Discovery have enough faith in James Gunn and Peter Safran to let them see this vision forward and create a shared DC universe that's able to rival the heyday of the MCU. Will that happen or not? I'm not really sure. We might not even get there because there are bigger problems when it comes to Warner Brothers Discovery than what's happening with the DCU. Mostly it has to do with finances and an enormous amount of debt sitting over the heads of Warner Brothers Discovery as they try to enact this. There have been rumors that they might be actually trying to sell the Warner Brothers portion of this once they get it healthy for a little bit of a profit nowadays. I talked about this not too long ago. Will we ever be able to make it to James Gunn 10-year plan? I don't know if we'll ever get halfway through before they have to make decisive action and probably cut this company into pieces. Definitely check this out if you want some more information. If you don't see it here, there's also a link in the video description.